Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. So we've talked about some of the good things that you've done. Now the question is, if you could go back, 30 plus years in it, what are some things that you wish you would have maybe learned or done when you were starting out?
We've talked about it tonight, shooting. I wish we would have spent more time shooting. When I grew up and you grew up shooting, we did it because we loved it. We did it on our own. When I first started, I thought, our players will shoot after practice. They'll hang out after practice and shoot like we did.
No,
it's not happening. And so I would have spent more time shooting, doing what we do now. If I'd had the files that I have, or the games that we have, or the competitions that I've stolen, we would have been a whole lot better.
I really feel like Wes and we just stumbled upon a style of play and a way of thinking that was foreign to both of us, because he would tell you right now, like, he never played this way and never coached this way. As far as a free flowing offense where guys are free to take the first open one that they get, they don't have to Hoosiers pass the ball 5 times before a shot. They just don't have to do that. And I never played. Coach T, I love Tommy Thomas, and he taught me so much about the game. And he let us play because we had 2 NBA players coming up behind me, and and me and a couple of seniors, we weren't bad. So, but we didn't spend time in practice doing that. So, but I look back at how lucky Wes and I were to have a bad year grinding and scouting and trying to pack line it up.
Yep.
And then with the group that we inherited, some of those McKinney guys are listening and they know who they are, that we went from being walk it up and average 40 points a game to open it up, get up to 68 points a game, let dribble drive motion. But what one thing I would change is do that earlier.
Yes.
And think if you and I would have been on teams in high school that played that way.
Yes.
You were already darn good. And if anybody doesn't know your player resume, I'll make sure in the bio I put that in. But man, it's just so different now. Let's keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, I remember we were playing at West when, I don't know if you were there with West at that point, but I remember we were in the same district. You're grinding it out. You're playing Indiana, Bob Knight motion offense, and which is great. Love the concepts, but
it is great.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you remember, I don't know if you were around, but I know you dabbled with Grinnell. One year playing at West, maybe it was a midlife crisis, but we did it. We did it for about 6, 7, 8 games. Loved it. Loved everything about it. And then there was mutiny. It was the better players weren't playing as much time. They didn't get as much time on the
time, but possessions.
Their stats were better. Their stats were better. They were scoring more. They were rebounding more. But it was that concept of, the guy 12 and 13 men are playing.
It's the shifts, man. It's the shifts that high school players just can't wrap their head around. I'm so glad you brought that up. I wasn't going to, but I am like you. I'm a lover of the system.
Yes.
And it's
intrigued.
Okay, Coach, I've never done crack. I've never done it. I would imagine it's like once you do it, how do you go back to, I'll edit that out.
I remember we had some, I guess mutiny is the best way to describe it. And this was mid-season, and we had a come to Jesus meeting, and we went back. I said, okay, it's your choice. And it had to be majority, though. We're all in, or even if one's not, we're going back. And we went back to the normal way of playing. And there was nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I loved it. Maybe after I retire, maybe you can hire me. We'll do Grinnell. We went to a clinic in Florida with Coach Arsenault was there, and the other guys that ran. I loved it.
Coach, my
Wrong place, wrong time.
My wife
Wrong place, wrong time.
my wife is back behind me, and I have. She was with me in those times when I went to the system at Faith. Coach, I did a parent meeting at the beginning of the year to get everybody excited. And then the I guess what was the hardest thing was seeing the pure joy and fun that the kids were able to have. It is a huge shift in your thinking. Like when Arsenault says, I'd rather get scored on quickly than get a stop playing good defense for 30 seconds, like that'll blow your mind. But he's right in that style of play. And when you can get there to where you don't mind how they're scoring, but you're all about how quickly you can go down there. I mean, we won 114 to 103 in a regulation of a high school game with no shot clock against two teams that don't have just superior athletes, but all players had a great time. I saw teammates that normally wouldn't come off the floor on the bench cheering for dudes that normally wouldn't play, hitting threes. We shot 60 threes in a game one time. Like it was just chaos. Football guys came in, culture changed, and we had to scrap it.
You got to be all in. If you're not all in, it's not going to work.
Yep.
But here's what we're going to do. I can't remember which, I've listened to too many JAMODI podcasts, but on one of them, they interviewed you at the end. They gave you the questions. Who was that? Which coach was that?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Speed round? It wasn't Dave Love, was it? Was it the?
Yes, it was Dave Love, the shooting coach. Yeah.
Well, he interviewed you and you said place you'd want to go. And you said to Grinnell.
Yes.
When you go, please, I want to go with you. I want to watch that too. I love so many, and I respect him for doing what he did.
He's one of the few geniuses and pioneers of the game, because we're all pretty much like Vance Wahlberg is probably on that mountain. And I'm learning about some other guys too that are changing in the game in some ways, and maybe have been doing it, but not necessarily out in the open, but he is one of those guys. And I had him on. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to his episode.
Dave Arsenault?
Yeah, I had him on.
Sure.
But again, Jana's back there because there's just times, and in my office at school, like, right back here. So I have all of his books, The Road to 138, because The Road to 138 really it details the start of why he did it, all the teams that he had do it, up to Jack Taylor, who scored the 138. But I can't look at him, I can't read him, because there's a part of me that longs to go back there. And I've told Matt Garnett that, like, about him and I. But there is the sweet spot, I think, of the D3 level, where athleticism is pretty much the same across the board. You're getting the same kids, but they are going there knowing what they're in for. And like he said in one of his interviews, he's like, guys, listen, people paid money to come watch you play. Let's put on a show.
Yeah.
That's it. And then George Barber, don't get me started. George Barber at Greenville has a sign in his locker room that says, devalue winning so freedom can flourish. I asked my AD, who's a great guy, Coach, can I put that in our locker room? He said, absolutely not. So I won't go back. I can't. Jana, I won't go back.
Maybe that'll be in our future. We'll open a private school, a charter school, and we'll run Grinnell.
Oh, I had a parent tell me one time that style of play wouldn't translate for colleges, because he wanted apparently at the time his son wanted to play. And I mean, I get it. Like, not many colleges are going to play that way. But the skill work and the making plays and playing full speed and taking chances and guarding and doing all these things. Yeah. One, these days, like, it's a lot more about select ball anyway. That style of play is going to get you ready to play anywhere in any style. But just the sheer numbers, like, when you've got multiple dudes averaging 15 or more, and you're hitting 423 threes in a year, like, it doesn't hurt. But anyway, Coach, that could be.
We'll do a podcast on that one time. Our experiences with Grinnell's system.
Yeah. I love it. I do. I just can't go back.
Yeah.
What a few other things that you would maybe do differently? Maybe one more. And if the answer is really, I don't have regrets because
No.
I mean,
I could name a ton of. I've got a list. We always have regrets. I think one of them I was thinking of is not trying to be great at everything. You know, when I first started, I mean, Roy Williams, I grew up in Kansas. We go to his clinics and
yeah,
go watch him practice. I wanted to run the secondary break. I wanted the back screen, lob, and I wanted to run their motion offense. I wanted to run their matchup zone, their man to man. We were bad at everything. When you try to be great at everything, you're going to be bad at everything. So I would focus more on one or two things, and let's be good at those.
I love that.
With you, Grapevine, you're known. You're shooters. When you play Argyle, they're going to D you up. They're going to be patient. They're going to be methodical, but they work on that. If you play Carter and play Coach Love, they're going to take a charge in warmups. They're going to take a charge every time you go to the one. So every team, and I'm learning this too, every team that's good at something, they work at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are great shooters because you work at it. Other teams are good at rebounding. They work at it. You said it before, Tom Izzo. I mean, they're tough. They're rebounders. They're defenders. They're tough, but try not to be great at everything.
Yeah.
You can't
because you do have to choose. Like,
Yes.
and you kind of mentioned with mediocre. Like, I think you want to have a program, have a team that does know what they hang their hat on, and wow, this is a crazy. It goes back to, I mean, my very first skills coach, which this is the first time I've ever thought of having him on, Coach John. I mean, Coach, this is great. Coach John in Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains was my first skill coach, and in fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I mean, I credit him. He turned me on to Pistol Pete, all those drills and stuff. But we were writing down goals or things that I wanted to get better at that summer. And I said, I want to, Coach, we're doing a lot of offense. I don't know if I'm a very good defender. Can you help me with that? And he paused. He looked at me and he said, what does, and this was, I mean, because this is when the Bulls were really big in the mid 90s. He's like, what does Steve Kerr, what is he really good at? I was like, oh, he's a knockdown shooter. He's like, you know what? He can also defend and he can also handle it and he can also pass it, but he's there because he's a knockdown shooter. And his whole point was, we can work on everything or we can try to get you really, really good at something. And I mean, that stuck with me. And then, starting out in coaching, you just have like all these influences. I want to be like Coach Thomas. I want to be like Coach Bush a little bit. I want to have the energy of Scott Drew.
Yeah.
And then along the way, you realize I just got to simplify this thing. And so I think that's a great nugget that you gave.
Well, and that too, you said be yourself. I mean, I'm never going to be accused of being an extroverted rah-rah. Be comfortable being yourself, who you are. I mean, I'm the biggest introvert there is. And that, for those that are out there that are introverted, you can still be a coach and you can still be effective given your temperament, given your personality, as long as you hire some good assistants that they're the opposite. And that's what I love about Travis and Carter and my assistants, Jeff and Lee and Mark. And they have strengths that I don't have. I mean, they're so good at relationships. I mean, if you have a spectrum and you have, I guess, task oriented on one end and relationship oriented on the other end. I mean, I'm task. Give me a list. Give me something to do. We got to get ready for this team. I'm there. But Travis, you know Travis.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He got TABC Assistant Coach of the Year last year.
That's awesome.
I mean, he's more of the relationships. I mean, we're warming up and he's walking around talking to the players. And I'm worried about what drill we're getting ready to do. I'm so focused on what I need to do next. But having that balance, and I guess you could say it's like a good marriage.
Yeah.
My wife is Miss Extrovert. She never met a stranger. Sanguine, lover, but I'm opposite. And the balance and when you get it together and you put it together is pretty special. And that would be the other regret, I guess, would not building better relationships with my players. And again, task oriented. I can make excuses. I mean, I was coached how I coached how I was coached, and all the coaches that I had, including bless our Coach Bliss. I love Coach Bliss. I respect the fire out of him.
I love playing for him too.
Yep. Learned a lot from him, but how he coached is different, and that doesn't mean it's bad. I loved him. I knew he loved me. He didn't have to tell me, but players nowadays, they need to know. And I assumed that they knew that I cared for them, but a lot of times I didn't communicate that. And I'm better at it now. I'm not great at it, but that's another growth area for me, to keep getting better at letting them know that I care. I don't want to be their buddy. I'm not their friend. I'm way too old to be their buddy right now. There's a balance.
Yeah.
You want the respect. To me, I'd rather have the respect first, and the friendship comes. The friendship comes after they've graduated. But if I did it again, I'd have better relationships with my players.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.